Okay, I would like to call to order the meeting of the West Bend Community Memorial Library Board for Tuesday, May 19th. I would like to ask for an approval of the agenda.
So moved from Doug Rakowski.
May I have a second?
I'll second Cindy Warnier.
Cindy. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, election of officers.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Deb Bartnikowski as president again. That's Doug Rakowski.
All those. We have a motion. Is anyone interested in becoming president before we go on? I mean, otherwise we have a motion. Is there a second?
Jesse, I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Jess. We have a motion and a second. Now, is there anybody else who would be interested in the position? If not, we'll take a vote. All in favor of Deb Bartnikowski being president, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Question?
Yes, sir.
This is Doug. Should the vote for the office be a roll call vote?
It
does
does
not have to be.
I'm not sure.
Was that you, Amy?
Yes, it does not have to be.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I would like to ask for a nomination for vice president.
Could I make a motion that we nominate the rest of the officers to be the existing slate?
Karen has been a great secretary, but she feels that it's time for someone else to become secretary.
Okay, that would make it too complicated then. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Okay.
Then I would like to make a motion to nominate Jesse as vice president.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Doug Rakowski, second.
This is Cindy.
Oh, okay. Cindy. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Is there any discussion? If
No.
not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Jesse becoming vice president, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Jesse.
Deb, you too.
Thank you. First of all, before we make a nomination for secretary, I would like to thank Karen for the years that she has done this. It's not been an easy job, and Karen, we really appreciate it, and I think you've done a wonderful job. So thank you.
Here.
I second that.
Now I would like to make a motion for secretary. I myself would like to nominate Cindy. Is there anyone else that would like to nominate someone?
You need
Cindy,
to ask for
did
a
you want
second,
it?
Deb.
Pardon me? What was that?
Does Cindy want it?
Cindy, would you accept this if you were given the nomination?
I certainly would.
Thank you.
Then I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for Cindy to be the secretary. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Cindy. Get out your pen and paper and start taking notes.
Cindy.
And last but not least, we need to have a motion for treasurer.
I make a motion for Joe. This is Doug Rukowski.
Okay.
Or Joseph, whichever he wants to be called.
Or late for dinner.
Right.
We have a motion and a second. Not a second. May I have I'm calling for a second.
Jesse will second.
Okay, Jess, thank you. We have a motion and a second, excuse me, for Joseph to be the treasurer. May I call for a vote? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Joseph.
Thank you.
We have our team in place now. Therefore, I'd like to move on to item number 4, consent agenda, for the approval of the minutes for our April 23rd meeting and for an approval of the library expenditures for April 2020. May I have a motion?
I so move, Doug Rukowski.
May I have a second?
I'll second Joseph Legate.
Okay. Is there any discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, number 5, financial reports and fund balance update. We'll look at the financial reports first. Joseph, you have anything you'd like to tell us?
There hasn't really been anything too exciting. We've been still paying a few checks for the family nights that are being done on the web. Other than that, nothing to report.
Okay. Any questions for Joseph on the financial report? If not, we will move on to the items. To item number 5B, the outreach funds. And I had asked Amy to put the outreach funds on the agenda, and I'll give you the reason why. Earlier in the month, based on a request from last month, Amy had sent out what the undesignated fund balances for 2019 were. This would be the carryover from the budget, and we should have all gotten that. Well, if you had looked at it, everything looked good except in the undesignated fund balances for outreach, because we only have one line on the report. It looks like we're carrying over the total dollar amount of what we had in our actual fund balance from the years, the $119,915. So what I would like to recommend is that our fund balance report be modified so that our outreach fund would look like both the library fund 21 and the county fund 126. We would have a line on it saying operating expense fund, which is our current operating budget for the year, and underneath that we would have a line that says restricted fund balance, and that fund balance would be now the $124,097.14 that has been built up in that fund over the years. Does that make sense to people? And if you have questions, please ask.
Well, then, this is Doug. We would then show in the operating expense portion a 0 or the minus or the negative 11,000.
Yes. And the
Yes,
reason we would have that is because we have not received the funds from the county. This is one of those funds that kind of operates in the red until the county pays us, I think, in May or April. Is that May or June, Amy?
We got checks in May.
Okay, so
And then we always run a quarter late.
Okay.
So we got our first quarter payment in May.
Okay.
So is it then still a negative 11,000 or not?
It would be, yes.
Doug, because this is the end of April's report,
sorry.
we aren't showing
I'm sorry.
the payment made.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Yeah,
No,
yeah, I missed that.
That's because we're like a month in arrears. So does anyone have any questions? My reason for looking at this is when I saw the report that Carrie had sent, and this is the first year we've ever really gotten a report like this because we as a board now are looking at our finances from a much more fiduciary responsibility. It is looking like on the outreach, the actual beginning balance was $119,000 from prior years. We had a revenue, we had a budget underrun of $5,000 that was from the year 2019 that we didn't spend. So on the bottom line where it says undesignated funds, it looks like we had a balance for the year, because everything on here says 2019. It looks like we had an undesignated balance fund of $124,000.
Which is incorrect.
Right.
No, I agree. I think this is doing basically what we did a couple of years ago when we broke out the operating expense in the library and the countywide funds for reporting purposes.
Yes.
We're just extending that philosophy or practice down into now the outreach fund.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just agreeing, yes.
That's you, Amy.
Yes.
Okay. Does the board, if someone on the board is really not sure of what I'm saying or what I'm doing, I would be glad to sit down with you, not on this conference call, but to go over the premise. I mean, I think it's kind of self-explanatory because it looks like when the document that Carrie sent, which was the audit that was sent over from the auditors, if you look at it, it says the library undesignated fund balances for 2019, and it looks like the $124,000 is undesignated. In reality, it actually is a restricted fund that can't be used for anything but outreach, but it's appearing that that was the amount of money we had in the budget from the county and the participants for 2019, and it kind of is inaccurate the way it looks.
Amy?
Yes.
Are you opposed to this?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you were opposed. Okay.
No, I was agreeing with Deb that we should have this kind of broken out a little bit more. It would make it a little more understandable.
Is anyone on the board uncomfortable with making this change and taking the vote on it tonight?
Yes.
Can I make a motion that we make this change effective with the next monthly report from the treasurer?
We have a motion to modify the financial report. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. This is Joanne.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, I would like to call for a vote. All in favor of making the change, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Now, before we go on to the next issue of the undesignated funds, I do want to bring up one more issue in regards to outreach. And my reason for bringing this up is because we've gone through almost 6 weeks to 8 weeks where we had not been operating outreach. We get payments from the three other libraries, Hartford, Germantown, and Kewaskum. We get a quarterly payment from Hartford for $2,196. We get a quarterly payment from Germantown of $915, and we get a quarterly payment from Kewaskum of $91.50. I would like to have the board approve not taking that quarterly payment for the month for this first quarter from these libraries because we have not been in service for 6 weeks. And we would take the funds out of the outreach fund 128, which is a restricted fund that we now have $124,000 that can only be spent on outreach issues.
I agree. This is Doug.
I like that idea too. This is Jessie.
Are there any questions? You know, this fund, again, can only be used for outreach, and we tend to have a substantial amount of the restricted fund. So I think this would be a good use for this portion. And that'll come out to a little over about $3,300 out of the fund.
So we don't
Good idea.
pay,
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
This is Doug. So move.
And I will second
this
it.
is Jessie. I have a quick question.
Sure, Jess.
Do we not pay, so they pay us, we don't pay out to them at all?
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Okay. One of the other, we have a motion and a second. Before we take a vote, I do want to just throw out one thing. Because of coronavirus, I think next year is going to be a real tough year for libraries. And in next year's budget, or for next year, I may bring this up again and just say we'd like to maybe think about waiving this fee from these libraries for 1 year. Because again, we do have a large amount of money that we can only spend on outreach. So that's just food for thought. Okay, moving on.
This is Doug. I like the idea, and I like the idea that we wait and just see what happens. Let's move on.
I agree. This is Jessie.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take $3,300 out of the outreach restricted fund balance to pay for the quarterly fee for Hartford, Germantown, and Kewaskum. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Can we
Yeah.
add some? Okay. I would like to have Amy so notify those libraries tomorrow.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug. That was a good suggestion. All right. What did I do with my agenda? Okay. We will move on to financial reports and fund balance update 5C 2018 undesignated fund balance designation approval with summer reading proposal.
I guess I'm up.
Yes, you are.
Okay, I have a few requests for the designation of the undesignated fund balance. I included a chart in your packet of where I think the money would be most effective, and this includes a summer reading proposal that was given to me by one of the librarians, Sarah, and that is included in the designation of undesignated fund balance. So I would entertain any questions and would ask for approval of this request.
It's Doug. I've got a question.
Sure.
The 22,000.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we budgeted for when we were doing the budgeting, and Chris came up with the idea of covering materials
Yes.
by pre-approving removal of monies from our anticipated fund balance.
Yes.
Amy,
that's
was
what-
that? Oh, go ahead.
It was actually 20,000 that was requested, but I am asking for 22. However, you have the control, so you can modify that if you would like.
Okay, so it was 20.
And then I'd like to continue on. The other two, the 1,000 for supplies and the 1,000 for special purpose. The special purpose is for the summer reading program, right?
Correct.
Okay. What's the supplies for?
Well, if we're going to buy $20,000 worth of materials, I need some money to process those materials to get them on the shelf.
When I look at the budget, year to date, we're about $40,000 in savings. Well, why do you have to take it from the fund balance? Right now, we're about $45,000 in net savings based upon the library expenditures and revenues. You don't need to take it from the fund balance.
Okay.
That's only my feeling. And then the tech support fund, what would that be for?
That is the designated fund balance for tech support. Remember, we had purchased the switches last year, and that would be refunding those funds for the amounts that was not used for the switches.
So are you saying there's money owing for the switches?
No. That was money that was left over because you had approved $20,000, and in actuality, the bill came to $14,000.
Why spend the money when we can save it?
We're not spending it. I'm asking you to put it back into the tech support fund balance.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Is that the same thing? Is that the same thing with the emergency fund?
Yes, the emergency fund, I just took what was left over from everything else and put it in the emergency fund.
Okay, my suggestion would be that we take out the 20,000 in essence that we budgeted for materials.
Okay?
Take that 2,000 and the 1,000 that we can. If you need supplies, you've got $45,000 savings in the budget already. So take that 2,000, the 1,000, and put it in either tech support or emergency fund. That's a suggestion. Is there any discussion? I'd like to hear something from anybody else.
Amy, this is Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, do we really need to increase the tech support fund by $6,000?
I was just putting the money back into that line. So we had taken it out last year, and I was just putting it back. So that is up to you guys.
We're paying ourselves back, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right, but I mean, if we just stick it there and we have another overage in the next year, in this year, I don't really see what the point is of sticking it back into the tech support.
Joseph,
Where do you want to put it?
Well, I don't know. I was just asking if we really are going to need the extra $6,000 in tech support.
There's $6,000 there, Joe. Where do you want to put it?
Well, my only other suggestion would just be sticking the rest, pretty much the $6,000, into the emergency fund as well.
That's okay with me because we're at least putting it in the fund, and down the road, if necessary, we can always transfer from the emergency fund into the tech support fund if we need it. I just don't want to, my feeling is I don't want to see us as saying, oh, we've got some money, let's spend it on something.
Right.
Okay.
and in reality, if something would go haywire with tech and it was an emergency, we could pull money out of that fund to use it. So putting it in the emergency is not a bad thing. I did not do a quick, I should have had a calculation done as to what percentage we have of our budget in the emergency. I think the last time I did it, we were sitting at about 17% of our annual budget in the emergency. So that would be 2,000. We would go up to 25, close to 3,000, which would still be within the guidelines of emergency funds, because the city actually in their emergency funds has gone up to 28%. How does the board feel about putting it in the emergency fund?
That's okay with me, Doug.
That would be fine with me too, Joanne here.
Tim, what do you think?
Cindy.
Okay.
Amy, this is Tim. So I'm thinking this one through, so I didn't say anything right away because I'm trying to think about this. But if the intent of the emergency fund is really to be emergency, and we have a technology fund for different technological things, and I think of forecasting the next year, which is really hard to do, or even the future of, libraries and technological support. If we dump this money into the emergency fund, is the only way we can take it out because of an emergency. Like, we have network switches that died and we have to replace them, versus we need to make a shift to purchase some sort of new online technology to support X, Y, and Z because of all that's going on. And I don't know what the definition of the emergency use is compared to if the money goes into the technology fund.
With the fund balances, the board has total control over how those are spent. So we just labeled those things as tech support fund and emergency fund. But if the board chooses to use the emergency fund for technology, they have every right to do that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, and I look at it, and Amy, when we bought those switches, you and I had a long conversation, and we met and talked a couple times. I prefer to see the money go back into the technology fund, because I think just in that conversation of talking with Amy and Brad over the years, there may be some things that we need to make sure that we are well planned for going forward, that I don't want to deplete that fund and just put it somewhere else and then somebody asks the same question. If it came from it, I guess I'd rather see it go back to it at this point in time. That's just my belief.
Okay, Tim, I agree with you. Joe, you had a concern about putting it in there, but I had agreed with your concept as long as it was in the reserves. But I think, Tim, you're coming from where I was originally. We took it from technology. Let's put it back in technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with that. I was just curious. I was more so just asking questions, not really saying we needed to stick it somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we're good with the special purpose for summer reading. We're good with the money going into technology, and the emergency fund is designated. The open issue we have is the material.
And that we should take the $2,000 extra and put it in either emergency or in tech support.
Okay, but you're saying take the $20,000 and leave that in material.
Right, because that's what we budgeted for.
Yes, yes.
And rather than increasing it, because again, if you look at our expenditures today, we're $45,000 in savings. We haven't spent $45,000 of our budget.
Amy, does that seem agreeable to you that we would move the 20,000 and then the 3,000 that you had designated would go into
The emergency fund?
yes?
This is Jessie. I have a quick question, though. The Strategic Planning Committee had come up with, I believe it was 5% increase in materials, correct?
Yes.
So would that 2,000 help us meet that goal?
It would help us exceed that goal, yes. The 20,000 meets it.
What about our advertising budget?
Well, wait a minute. Why don't we, okay, are we agreed that the materials should be the 20,000, and we've got now $2,000 sitting there that we're discussing?
Yes.
Okay. Now we want to decide where we put the 2,000, right?
Yes.
Because if you want, you've got to remember, we've got $45,000 that we haven't spent. And if we basically stay at this rate, which we probably won't, but come end of year, we're going to have another big fund balance. And that may sound, oh God, we got that kinds of money. But I believe next year we're going to also have a big shortfall of what we want to, what we would like to have, and what we will get funding for. I think we need to be very conservative the balance of this year. You know, let's not put ourselves into a box.
Yeah, I agree, Doug. Next year is going to be scary because I have a feeling we're going to be cut from both the county and the city. Because the revenue isn't coming in, and I even think the system is not going to provide as much because they're not going to get as much shared revenue from the state because that's way down.
The state can't print money, so they either have to borrow or they have to cut. And the state is going to cut. So we better be prepared.
So if we would recommend that 20,000 would go into materials and the additional 2,000 that we had to put on the fund balance would go into the emergency fund, is that acceptable to the members?
For Doug, yes.
Does anyone take issue with us doing that? You know, what are your feelings? Karen, you're a businesswoman.
I think it's a acceptable plan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would like to call for a motion to take the 2019 undesignated fund balance to put 20,000 into materials, 1,000 in supplies, or we'll leave that in supplies, 1,000 for summer reading, 6,000 for technologies, and
we're not spending the 1,000 for supplies.
Pardon me?
We're not going to spend the 1,000 for supplies. We're taking that out. We can, if we need supplies, we've got a 45,000 overage in our budget. So take the 1,000 out. So what we're going to approve, if I can, is 20,000 for materials, 1,000 for the special purpose for summer reading. The tech support fund would be 6,000, and the emergency fund would pick up the extra 2,000 from materials and the 1,000 from supplies.
So that would be 47,000 going into the emergency.
Yes.
47,423. Okay. Is there any discussion? Otherwise, I would like to call for a motion.
So move. I'll make the motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Joanne.
Thanks, Joanne. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of moving the designated funds as specified, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item, number 6, the library director's report. Amy?
Okay. As you can read, there's a lot going on here. Our whole pickup service has been successful, and most of the other stuff, summer reading and Beanstack, we are starting to look at summer reading program, and we will do a virtual and take-home activities, as well as reading logs and prizes. So there will be lots of stuff going on. We are doing story times and programs virtually through Facebook Live and our YouTube channel, as well as Zoom and Instagram. So I guess I think the other topics are being discussed later on in the meeting. So if you have any other questions, please let me know.
I'd like to make a comment if I could. I kind of took you to task. This is Doug. I took you to task last meeting on the preparation plan, and I think we came out of this fine. I think with your up-and-coming phasing plan, you have shown some experience with suggested criticism. I think you're doing a decent job. I have not heard any complaints from people. So I think we can move on. I think in general, Amy, you're working hard to do a good job in keeping your staff, I guess, in line and with requirements as needed.
Thank you.
Any questions for Amy? If not, we'll move on to the library board president's report. And I have a couple things. First of all, I would like to congratulate Amy. May 15th was her 6th anniversary as the head librarian.
It was actually my 7th.
7th?
Yep, 7th year.
Wow. Okay, for some reason I thought it was 6. I apologize. On your 7th anniversary, congratulations, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice job, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing I would like to talk about, which falls right in line with Amy's 7th anniversary, is for the June meeting, I would like us to go into closed session to discuss Amy's 6-month appraisal. So please come prepared with information, and we will go into closed session on that. So that is a task for the board members.
Hey, Deb, this is Tim. I have a question with that. So making the assumption that we are back in person to person, we can do that. If we are not in person to person, what does our bylaws state about having closed session executive meetings over virtual? It's a very different world about security and stuff like that.
Tim, I would postpone it. I'm the optimist. I'm always the optimist.
I am too, but I want to make sure that we're clear on what, if we can or cannot, or how we feel about that. Just having to do that, there's just different ways to handle that situation. So.
Yeah, no, if we would have to have it via conference call or Zoom or something, I would say we would not go into closed session. And
why not?
This is
Why not?
because can we go to the city hall and they're meeting in person, spread out? And
well, that is an option. I saw last night's Common Council meeting. I watched it and I saw how they did it. They did it in the City Hall meeting room. So we could, if the reopen continues, meet at City Hall and utilize their area, and then we could go into closed session.
That's a good idea. It's a good alternative.
Mm-hmm.
And
So thank you, Tim, for bringing that up. Does that satisfy?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to be clear, not saying we can't, but I just don't, everybody's policies are a little different.
I wouldn't do it over the phone. That's too, or even a conference. I would not think that, because of it being confidential information, I would not do that. Okay? So we'll plan on meeting in person, but practicing social distancing next month, hopefully. And then the third thing on my president's report is I just wanted to mention I had asked last month for people to look at the bylaws. I really don't want to discuss that at this time, only because with the coronavirus and the closing of the library and the reopening, we do have a lot of things on the agenda. So I just wanted to let people know I didn't forget that. That will be on a later agenda. And that's it for me. Does anyone have any questions for me? If not, we will move on to item number 8, old business, Monarch Library System update.
Okay, the system directors last meeting for Directors Council was on Thursday. The search for a new director has begun, and in my report there's a lot of things going on in there. Delivery started up again on April 24th with a modified service schedule, and bins are being quarantined at the hub for 3 days before delivering them to their locations right now. We're looking at Beanstack, which is the new virtual summer reading program app, and Hannah Kane here at the library is setting it up for West End patrons to use this summer, and she's done a terrific job at that. This Beanstack app is being offered to all Wisconsin libraries from the Department of Public Instruction, from DPI, so it is at no cost to us. Let's see. There will be an updated ILS member agreement that will spell out more of our practice and billing for services that we do now, but actually have them in print. I will get that to you once it gets approved by the system board. That will probably happen at their next meeting in July, so expect that early fall. Those are just some highlights. If anyone has any questions on the Monarch Library System, please let me know.
Amy,
this is Jessie.
go ahead, Jess.
I just have a quick question. Are we using the Beanstack for the adult reading program too, or just the kids?
Right now it's being set up for youth services. We're planning on doing our adult summer reading program the way we've always done it.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
This is Doug. I'd like to add some stuff from Monarch. The search committee for the new director is will have their second meeting tomorrow, looking at potential candidates. And the search is going on. The deadline was the 19th. We have some very qualified candidates that we will be reviewing. I'd also like to point out that Beanstack, as we need to remember, it's 1 year. So that if we really get to like it, next year we may have to pay for it. We don't know, but I think we should keep that in mind, that it's free for 1 year so far.
Yep.
And then, of interest, Sheboygan Mead Library has been the resource library for Monarch. And they have been paid $100,000 a year from Monarch to be the resource library. When Jennifer took over, she started looking at this and realized, we don't know what we're getting. Mead would come to Monarch, ask for $100,000, and Monarch would give it to him. So Jennifer started negotiating with Mead to tell Monarch what Mead is giving them for $100,000. And it's proving to be interesting. It's not confrontational, but it is, Jennifer has opened up and has provided the reason why we're giving them $100,000, as opposed to if Amy wanted to find out what we get from Mead, it would be just some conjecture. And at this point, they're spelling out what that $100,000 does. So it is a positive. And that's it for me from Monarch.
Amy, were you aware that this was going on with Sheboygan, the resource library?
I knew that they had a contract. They had spelled out what they were spending it on. It was mostly on materials, as far as e-materials, and the in-demand collection.
Does what they're providing as the resource library, when we were the resource library, does it seem like we're getting the same service that we had been providing when we were it?
We're actually getting more service because we're getting materials. When we were the resource library for Mid-Wisconsin, that only included a contract for original cataloging. That's all it was.
Okay, so now it includes material. Okay, thank you. One other question I do have, Polaris, we're sunsetting Polaris. When did we, I can't.
No, we're not sunsetting Polaris. We are getting a new server at the system for Polaris.
Okay. The way I misread it then. I thought we were sunsetting it.
No.
So we're still going to be using Polaris. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions regarding Monarch? If not, we'll move on to, this is a nice fun topic, the new business. Approval to reopen the library Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., starting May 20th, which is tomorrow.
Could I make a comment, please? It's Doug. I sent out to everyone one of my, I guess I'm getting to be notorious list, but it's a series of questions that I had that I think we as a board need to think about and assist Amy in, do we implement these or what do we do? Because unfortunately, it seems like this thing is changing almost on a daily basis. And overall, one of the problems I had was there was no way of knowing in this plan when you would switch from one phase to another. The other major issue I have is signage. So we have signage within the library and on the doors that are accurate and that reflect the current status of the library. And then one other area that I don't think has been checked by many people is use of the elevator. Now, I have a bunch of other questions under each of the phases, so I'm just going to leave it up to everybody else. Go ahead and talk.
I have a few concerns with opening tomorrow. I guess I'm not opposed to it, but I'm a little bit wary that we might not be prepared to put a consistent message out there right from the get-go. I think with the phase one, where we were doing the curbside service, we had a pretty good plan in place when we started, and the nature of the service still allowed us to fine-tune it as we learned as we went each day, and things got better and better. With moving into the next phase, where there's actually the public coming into the building, I think it becomes more important to be really set up with a consistent message and a consistent plan, and the signage, like Doug mentions, from the get-go, rather than trying to catch up later. And maybe that's all been done. I guess I don't know about the details that aren't in the report, but those items, like cleaning the computer stations in between usage and cleaning the bathrooms. If those things are accounted for and we've got a plan for that, that's great. But those are the kinds of things that I think it's important, whatever the plan is, that it's well thought out, and that the message is communicated really clearly to anybody walking in the front door from the get-go. And the concern that underlies that is my concern for the staff, because like if I go in there as a member of the public, I go in, I get my book, I leave and I'm out. But the staff that have to work in there all day long, that's a big chunk of their day, and I guess I feel really responsible for their safety and well-being too. So I'm not opposed to opening tomorrow, but I just have a concern on to make sure that we're consistent and we're ready to go out of the chute.
Mm-hmm. That's a very valid point, Joanne. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Amy, did you put in your plan, and I don't remember seeing it, we do have shields now, just like they have at the grocery store?
Yes, we do.
I don't know if the board is aware of that. We have done some precautionary things like the grocery stores have done, so there will be shields up on the reference desks and also at the circulation desk.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us, go ahead, Amy, can you tell us a few more other things? I know you have a lot of cleaning stuff.
Yeah, we have a lot of cleaning stuff. We have acquired more hand sanitizer. We have masks for everyone to have at least 2, if not 3.
That's
so they
for
can
the
be
staff,
swapped
though,
out
right?
for the staff, correct.
Yeah.
We are practicing social distancing with those shields. So there's actually at the reference desk, I believe there's 5 shields going around the reference desk, around the librarian, and there's 2 at the information desk surrounding the librarian. Then there's 1 at each of the stations at circulation, which covers their work area.
Amy,
yes.
quick question, remind us, are you going to direct people to use the auto checkout rather than have somebody physically doing it?
No, we are not. We are not going to do that at this time because we cannot clean it between every person.
Well, one of the disadvantages, or not disadvantage, the potential of catching the virus is much stronger over exposure over time as opposed to incident. That's why going to a restaurant, is more dangerous than going to the grocery store. So that's for the staff. What about masks? What about masks?
We're encouraged. Oh, go ahead.
Can we put a sign on the door, no mask, no entry, like some of the grocery stores do, and like Costco does, and numerous other stores?
I don't believe that we can because of discrimination.
It is not discrimination. It is not discrimination. All we're doing is asking somebody to be healthy.
Doug, we're going to recommend that people wear masks, but based on what the city and the county, and that's one of the things that the city is saying, we need to follow the county blueprint. Is that it, Amy? The blueprint?
Yes.
And they highly recommend people wear masks, but they are not going to, because we are a public building. We're not a grocery store. A grocery store, you have the option of saying you don't have to come here, but a public library, just like refusing books, we can't charge for books, we can't refuse people. Technically, we can if somebody really does something bad, but we cannot tell people they have to wear masks because we are a tax-funded public entity.
Okay. How about the elevators?
We can put signs up saying 1 person per elevator ride.
I think that's good.
Okay.
And you might want to put on there 1 adult, and if somebody's got one of their kids, they could take one of their kids with them.
Right.
How about the bathrooms? That's something Joanne mentioned. How are we going to maintain cleanliness in the bathroom?
We will do the best that we can. We do have city. I know. Let me finish.
Okay.
Okay. We do have city services for our cleaning. and they are working to make sure that we will have a clean facility.
And how often will they clean?
Minimum once a day. We are open for 8 hours.
So the bathrooms, now you're saying minimum, so will they be there more than once?
Possibly.
It depends what the city determines.
But you can't assure it.
No, and we were told we should post on the doors that the bathrooms are cleaned in the evenings, and just let people know that the bathrooms are cleaned once a day.
Would it be possible to have a designated restroom for the staff? I feel that at least what the staff.
Yes, they do have a designated bathroom.
Okay, that would help. At least it would give them a little bit of time.
At least they won't die.
Well, I'm more concerned about the staff, the patrons that are coming in without masks. So
we could put a sign up saying, "Be sure you go potty before you come here."
Or another sign you could put up and say, "Use 4 squares only."
Yeah. Use at your own risk. No.
Okay.
Hey, Amy, this is Tim. So as you talk about the cleaning side of this and everything else, as I look at your plan, we're opening Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. How does that adjust your staffing plan? And are you bringing the staff in that would normally work later in the hours to work within the confines of the 9 to 5 and on the weekends? And are they able to provide some of the support of the additional cleaning, et cetera, that we're talking about here? Are those staff not working, and what is happening with them?
Well, actually, we have lost some staff due to this virus. I will be honest with you. I am in need of staff for if we were to open more hours than is stated in phase 1, or in the partial reopening with social distancing. We are working on hiring right now.
But let me throw this in. We are not going to hire the entire amount of staff we're losing, and the reason for that is the city will quantify the fact that we've lost people, therefore we will not have to furlough. If we would replace all the people we're losing, the city would require us to furlough our employees.
So how many staff did we lose?
4.
More than we want.
Wow.
So Amy, then are you saying that you have, and again, I'm trying to quantify this in hours and thinking of something and adjusting it. Do you have knowing that we're going to open up Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, do you have the correct amount of staff? Are you still understaffed to meet that? Are you overstaffed to meet that?
We are staffed to meet that. We are not understaffed, nor are we overstaffed.
And is there any change in their day-to-day that, like Doug asked about the checkout, and I know they probably don't clean it on a regular basis, but are there things happening within your staffing times day that are helping to clean the environment besides the computers and so forth? Is that built into your plan somewhere?
I guess I don't. You mean like cleaning the areas and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking tabletops. I'm thinking computers. I'm thinking whatever it is. Is there an expectation for your staff that, if it's downtime and I'm, in a certain area and there's nobody around there, that every 2 hours we are wiping, I don't know, the self-checkout machine off or door handles? Is your staff doing any of that, or are we just doing a one time a day cleaning with the cleaning crew from the city?
The workstations are being cleaned every time they move a station. So during their shift, they would be cleaning during that part of the day. As far as cleaning other areas within the library, I don't know how busy they're going to be yet. So we haven't actually worked on, you clean this area, you clean this area. I'm waiting to see how busy we are, and if we can delegate people to those types of activities, we will.
So I like that.
Amy, this is...
I'd like to be a little more proactive and have the list of these are things you can be doing if you're not busy, so they understand exactly your fence posts on some of those things. And I get it, if I'm constantly have somebody in front of me and I can't, I'm not going to stop checkout to go do that, but these are additional things you can be checking so it's in front of them and fresh in their minds, not as an after. That's just my, I don't know, you know how it is if you say, your job is to go clean the copier or check the copier, or wipe that down. It's in the forefront of their minds before that versus we wait 3 days and then it's a good idea. We should do it from beginning if we have that time.
Okay.
Is it possible to just remove tables and chairs and designate just a small portion of the library available for people to actually sit and read or do whatever they need to do?
Well, we considered that. However, it's probably better to allow people to, spread out. We actually spread out all the furniture so it is 6 feet apart throughout the library. And, we are going to limit the amount of people to 150 people, which is less than 25% of our capacity.
Do you have somebody to count?
Yes.
Okay.
So how many people do you normally...
Oh, sorry, Jesse.
Go ahead. Nope, go ahead.
So my question is what are you going to do with the 151st person who walks in the library? You're actually going to turn them away and say, no, sorry, we're at capacity then?
Yep.
Isn't that discriminating? We're a public facility.
No, because the order from the county, which we are following, their work order says no business can have more than 25% of the capacity at this time. So we are just following the county blueprint.
So what is our capacity?
600. It's close to 600, isn't it, Amy?
Yes. It's a little over 600. Or no, it's 700 because we have to account for staff as well.
Okay.
So 150 patrons.
And if you're the 151st person, what you can do, we do have a nice little bench that was donated to us by the fellow who passed away, sitting in vestibule. We can have people wait. I guess I don't know if we're going to hit 151 right away while we're in this phase. We may hit it, and if we hit it, then we might have to think about looking at going to the next phase.
What about somebody that comes in and sits down at a table and reads for a couple hours? Are we going to allow that? Are we going to put a time limit on the time in the library so that we can rotate people?
How do you monitor that?
Well, I'm pretty sure that with staff walking around, they can notice somebody sitting there for 2 hours. They certainly notice other things, so they could be noticing that.
Do you think we could put something on the rules as people enter that just say, please be courteous and mindful of your time?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
I also think that this is fair that not having programs, we are not going to go over that 150 person limit at this time. If we had children's programs, we might, but at this point, I don't think so.
We'll have to wait and see.
That was my question too, Amy. Like, how often besides the program day do we have 150 people in the library?
At one time, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say very often.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so either.
I don't know. I disagree. I think the people I've been in contact with, people are itching to get out, and as much as we don't want them to get out and socialize and resume some normalcy. And I don't know. I don't think I'd be surprised. I mean, you've got kids who are out of school. You've got parents who are out of work right now. If there's an opportunity to go somewhere, we're kind of providing that opportunity.
Except, Cindy, we're not a bar up north.
Well, no, we don't have to be. I mean,
You know what? I'm being
this is that
facetious.
first step towards
How the bar is.
the first step towards normalcy. I mean,
Yeah. I think it's kind of like the curbside. We're going to see how things go, and Amy will evaluate it on a daily basis and make the necessary changes.
and maybe with no toys in the children's area and no games on the computers for the kids to play. I mean, really, it's only just browsing the stacks and go, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
How will you know when to switch over to phase 2?
What? Well, I'll just kick this in. I think part of it will come when we see how the county is doing and how if we are controlling the virus through the social distancing. The county blueprint is actually changing on a daily basis. It has already been modified. At one point they had said no more than 50 people in an area or a building, and then they modified it to say 25% of capacity. So we are in such uncharted territory. I think this is just going to be, we're going to hit it head on and just deal with it as issues come up. Is that correct, Amy?
Yes.
Is the staff ready to go tomorrow?
yep, they're ready to go.
Are you going to have signage?
Yes.
Before we can actually open tomorrow, though, we, the board, must approve opening for this next phase. So I'd like to ask if someone would make the motion to open the library as projected or listed in Amy's phase for this phase. No one wants to make a motion. I will make the motion, and part of the reason I will make the motion is the city has, they've given us their blessing, and they're looking for us to do the same thing. And Hartford has already opened, so we have libraries in Washington County that are open.
Well, I'm certainly glad it isn't a situation where because you jumped into the lake, I'm supposed to do it also.
Well, Doug, the city provides us with funding, and if we don't cooperate, they want...
Did the city tell us we have to open?
They're strongly encouraging it.
They're strongly encouraging us to open.
The city did not tell us we have to open tomorrow, right?
No, but they are encouraging us to open.
By when?
Tomorrow.
Do we have that in writing or anything? You see, this is some of that bluff stuff. If we want to wait until Monday, we could wait until Monday.
We could. I have not seen it, but I thought there was a press release that went out saying that the entire city would today. So we're a day late and $1 short. No, so that was today that the press release went out.
I think
Saying that the city is now open.
Personally,
we were planning. Wait. Was that you, Brett, talking?
Yes, it was.
No, that was
in
me
fact,
doing.
this is
Sorry,
Brett.
too many of us.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Brett.
Yes, the news release was put out saying that the library was pending, waiting for our action tonight. So the actual opening was contingent on our action tonight as far as the meeting goes and approving the opening plan. So yes, the press release has been put out. There's been a lot of press on the county's blueprint for opening,
Again, that's the stance of the county and the city, because the city does not have a health officer who controls this situation. The city then kind of goes back to what the county is pushing or county is advising, because they have the health officer who makes those decisions.
So these are the two agencies or the two areas of government that provide us our funding. They are requesting that we open tomorrow.
So they never said tomorrow. Yep, they never said tomorrow.
The press release said tomorrow or pending our approval.
Okay, it did not say tomorrow. That's my issue, is that you're saying it's already been released, that we have been told that we have to, and there's nothing.
Oh, wait, no, Doug. I'm saying the city has encouraged us to open tomorrow. And
Is there a question of Amy?
Yes?
Is your staff willing to open tomorrow?
Yes.
Then I second Deb's motion that we open tomorrow.
Thank you, Karen. I think on this
I have
one,
a couple comments before we vote. I just wanted to say, if we were looking at the option of either opening tomorrow or waiting until Monday, just to give us a little bit more time, I think there might be a benefit to opening up tomorrow on a Wednesday, because then we've just got the 3 days, and then we get a break to kind of change anything if we have to before the public gets used to the new arrangements there. And so I think having that break after the 3 days would be a plus. But I also had a question for Amy, and I guess when you've talked about the plan with the staff and about their continuing to work, did you hear any objections or any concerns from the staff that haven't been addressed?
No, we've addressed all the concerns that the staff have brought up, and we've gotten the necessary supplies and everything that have been requested.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
are there any other questions for Amy or any other questions regarding the opening? I guess I look at this from a standpoint that, yes, a grocery store is essential and a Walmart is essential, but for a lot of people in our community, this library is essential. And that is why I'm looking to open sooner rather than not. And that's my say. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second to open the library tomorrow through Friday in the phased status that Amy has put together. I'd like to call for an individual vote. Amy, can you take the roll call? Sure.
Why are we taking a roll call for this when we didn't do it on morning?
I guess we can take it. We don't have to take a roll call.
Doug, my understanding is any board member can ask for a vote to be done under roll call if we're in person or not, correct?
Well, I did, and I was turned down. I did on the morning, and they said they didn't do it. Just earlier in the meeting. If you want to go back and check, I asked, what about taking a personal count? I was told, no, we don't have to do it. And now you're saying if somebody asks for it, we do it. I think we need to look for consistency in what we're doing, and we're not. Personally, I don't care if we open the library or not. What I'm looking at is a plan, and we're trying to put some controls on this, and those are my questions concerning controls. If the court wants to go ahead and just open it up wide open without any of these phases, go ahead. Because whatever goes wrong will reflect on it. And if it goes good, we look good.
Okay, I will withdraw my statement asking for an individual call. We have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor of opening the library, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
This is Jessie, so I just want to double check. Is the only task regarding this for Amy is to create the signage with the recommendations that we've told her to put on the sign?
No, it's also to do listing for the staff, things for the staff to do during, like what
Oh,
Kim
yes, thank you. Yep.
Well, what about the signage for the elevator? Is that a task, or is that just something you're going to go ahead and do, Amy?
I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Okay, the next issue then is number 9, new business social distancing policy approval. Amy, you want to just talk about it, please?
Sure. I have put together a social distancing policy kind of based on different things that I've found that we've used in the past as far as limiting, gatherings and toys in the kids area, family groups, those types of things. And I also added in there that young children need to stay with their parents to ensure that they maintain social distancing with others that are not their parents. So I guess I'm just looking for approval of this policy. Or any questions or recommendations. Yes, Doug?
If we approve this tonight, it goes into effect tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay, because then this gives you another tool to control what's going on in the library.
Correct.
Okay. I think it's a good policy.
I'm not against the policy. I'm going to ask the opposite question of this. If all of a sudden, and I think Deb said it earlier, and I read a lot of plans in my job, and right now, and as you look at this stuff daily, if something changes 2 days after our board meeting, we can't take this policy away for 30 days till we reenact it, correct? The board has to dismiss this policy at some point in time?
Correct.
Tim,
So
what I was
go
going to
back-
do... Oh, go ahead, Tim.
This may go back to the, how do we know we go to the plan to reopen completely? Normal
I would-
operating out. Will that
After
come
we
back
had
to the board?
done this, Tim, after we had done this discussion on the social distancing, I was going to say I would like to propose we give Amy the ability to go to the next level or next phase. We will pre-approve it based on her recommendation. So if 3 weeks from now we wanted to go to the next phase, Amy would have pre-approval of the board so that we would not have to call a special meeting. Because you're correct, if we would make a change, if something would happen, we, the board, would then have to have a special meeting to make the necessary changes.
And so, but now with that, Deb, there's 2 steps after this before I see this policy going away. Because if we go to the next step after partial open, then we have open with social distancing, would this policy in effect stay in effect until we go back to normal operating procedures? To me, that's what should be the motion. That's what we're trying to get at. I'm just trying to clarify when this policy comes out of play in the situation that you just described.
Basically, Tim, and that's a good point. My thinking was that this policy would remain in place until, quote, the state and everyone says that the virus has been contained and we do not no longer have to do social distancing. So I would think that social distancing should continue until I would let it, even when we opened up full-time under regular circumstances, I would think we should recommend social distancing. But you are correct. If we did it that way, we would have to make changes to this policy.
And the problem I'm seeing, Deb, is the fourth bullet point for open without restrictions is social distancing not required. So if we're gonna allow Amy to make that decision to go from partial opening to opening with social distancing, regular hours of operations, and then transition over to open without restrictions, I believe the policy's got to go out of play at that point. That's the trigger point for this policy to be no longer effective. Then it becomes, what if we have to go the other way? Do we have to have a board meeting again? I mean, a policy is a policy until the board acts on it. And that's where I'm struggling with this of reacting that fast. This could be a wave of we go open without restrictions, and at some point we have to go the other way. I'm just trying to figure out how much of this is the board's blessing to do all this versus this is Amy's job as the director to move us in and out of these stations back and forth.
Well, let me just tell you though, when the governor closed down things, we did not have a meeting to say we're closing the library. The library just closed. So if we would go back the other way, I think we would have to follow the precedent that was started the last time. So if the city comes, and the city was in agreement that we shut down immediately. We actually in West Bend stayed open 2 days longer than the other libraries, but we based that on what the city was recommending.
So then, knowing that we made the approval to open today, there is no legal precedent that says we need to be the one to move us through these policies. We're saying we're open. Whatever our rules are based upon Amy's guidance at that point. I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure whatever reason we had to approve the opening versus the closing of, that's maybe where I'm stuck on is the city said we had to vote to reopen the library.
That was an ordinance that came from the state. The state actually said the city and both the city and the library boards had to give their blessing to open.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that was one of the regulations that came out from the state of Wisconsin.
Okay, I am kind of following along. This is Doug. I'm kind of following along Tim. You raise a point. When do we not use the social distancing policy? When does it end?
So Doug, I have the answer to that, but it would be when I make the motion. So, I mean, I think part of it is really the motion describing, based upon the phases that we're currently in, whatever phase that we're in of this reopening plan, whatever phase we move to, this policy is affecting these phases, not in this one. That's how I would see it in the motion.
Well, in phase 2, you're saying we wouldn't social distance?
No, in my mind, if the motion would be, and I guess this is my motion, is that the library board adopt the social distancing policy to be in place whenever the library is in a partial opening with social distancing state or an open with social distancing state. Because that matches the two areas that we would be there. So that would be my motion then. Because if the only other state is we're completely closed or we are open without restrictions, which neither of those require the social distancing piece.
That was a good analysis, Tim. Thank you. I see where you're coming, and I agree. So Tim has put a motion on to approve the social distancing while we are in the phases that we're going through, and that the social distancing policy will expire when we enter into the completely open phase with no restrictions.
Yeah, this is Tim. I want to clarify something. I don't know if I like the word expire. I think it's wherever we are in whichever one of these phases. Because if we then have to go backwards, if we're open up completely and all of a sudden we have to go backwards to open with social distancing, that policy would become ineffective. It never really expires until this is all done.
Okay, that sounds good. So Tim has made a motion.
Can we still have questions, or we do it after the motion?
After the motion.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Wait, how do you want this worded?
Tim, I'll defer to you.
Jesse, did you ask that?
No, that was Cindy.
Cindy, so I would make a motion to adopt the, I gotta find the social distancing policy to be in effect whenever the library is in the partial open with social distancing phase or the open with social distancing phase.
Okay.
And then that's it. And so that would basically make it effect. So if all of a sudden Amy has to go one way or the other, it becomes an effect at that point in time. We can revisit this as a whole then. When this whole thing is done, we can choose to then just abolish this policy and expire it out at that point.
Okay.
And Jesse will second it.
Now there's discussion, Doug.
Okay.
Discussion.
Let's assume, okay, who is going to determine phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3? Who is going to determine? Because from what I've seen, phase 3 doesn't have social distancing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Phase 3 does if you count closed as a phase,
Yeah.
Doug. Our fourth phase really doesn't.
So if the city, what I'm looking at is if the city says there's social distancing, does that say that we maintain social distancing also, even though we might be in phase 3?
Doug, I don't know that, this is Tim, and I'm just thinking of, following the blueprint to open plan. When you talk about that, not the city deciding that. The city's providing us guidance as a city as a whole based upon what the county government here has decided. No different in the district. We look to I think it's Kirsten is their health person there. We're in contact with her. I think it's Amy's job to make a decision based upon the guidance she has provided from the county and the city to determine where we are at. If she is never uncomfortable with that point, then it's her job to call a meeting and she needs to bring it to us. And she should be talking to Deb on a regular basis as the president. That's just my beliefs on how that should work.
Okay, then once we, say, go into phase 3 and it doesn't require social distancing, that automatically takes us away from any implementation. It then expires this policy. The policy stays in our books, but if we're not in a social distancing mode, the policy isn't implemented. If we ever go into a social distancing mode, then this policy becomes effective, right?
Yes, in what I put forward, yes, in a motion, I think the board at some point would want to revisit the policy to see if it really is meeting the needs when this is all done. So when you talk about that, this is what we learned after COVID phase. Maybe there's things that we learned of we can keep the policy on the books or it needs to be completely written. I mean, I also see that there's potential, and Amy, you can speak to this more than me, but in another month, Amy may ask for a request to this social distancing policy based upon what she's learned in the last month's time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we want to bring this back as a whole when this is all over, what we've learned about. That's my belief.
Okay. That answers my question.
Deb or Amy, this is Brett.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have a question. We just approved or just discussed the plan for reopening the library. Looking at the social distancing policy, there are a lot of the items in the policy that are actually listed as bullet comments in this plan. What was the requirement? Is there a requirement that if we actually have a policy stating this, or can we use the plan as our policy, which then can, adjust as things need?
Well, the policy would give me an additional tool to use to promote social distancing within the library. And it was recommended by DPI that we have a social distancing policy when we reopen.
Okay. The reason, Brent, is that if a customer or a patron comes in and says, well, you don't have, what's your policy? Instead of handing the plan, we can hand out the policy.
I understand. Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second regarding the approval of the social distancing policy. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. One other thing now in the new business, I probably should have covered it under the approval to reopen the library. I threw out that I would like us to do a pre-approval where if Amy feels she could go to the next phase, we would give her that approval. My reason for doing that is if she wanted to go to another phase, we could call a special board meeting. So that's why I'm going to throw it out to the board how they want to handle it. If they want to have a special board meeting to look at, when she's prepared to go to the next phase, or if we want to give her pre-approval that she could go into the next phase, and then we would do a recap at the regular board meeting, the next regular board meeting. What are your thoughts?
This is Doug. I'd like to see, because of the situation we're in, I'd like to see a special session of the board for the move into the next phase.
Okay. Anyone else have any?
Doug, this is Tim. Can I ask the question of how nimble are we going to be as a board? So if Amy believes this on a Monday, we're having a meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday, as long as we meet the public requirement for posting a public meeting?
That's 24 hours for public posting, isn't it, Amy?
Yes, it is.
I'm fine with that, but I just want to make sure in your statement what you're saying is we're not waiting a week for that to happen. We agree and I don't know how we agree because we can't really vote on it, but the idea from the board would be this is a as soon as possible special meeting. Is that what you're getting at, Doug?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Any other opinions from board members? We can leave it up to a special meeting. I mean, that's fine.
Amy and Deb, this is Tim. Amy, what's your feedback on this? And if your comfort level in making this decision, or do you want the board's involvement? I guess I'd like to hear your feedback because it really hinges on you also.
Sure. I would appreciate the board's feedback, and from what I've noticed as far as communication with board members, sometimes I don't necessarily get feedback from them, and a board meeting would kind of force me to get feedback. So I would like the board meeting.
That's
I
fine
think
with
that answers it in my mind. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Okay.
Well, this is Joe. I just wanted to say, would we be able to schedule this as a conference rather than like a phone conference rather than an in-person?
Yeah.
Because even if we're doing our regular meetings in person at that point, I don't know if we'd need to all come into the library for a 10-minute discussion on whether, a potentially 10-minute discussion to move to the next phase.
Joseph, because we modified the bylaws because of COVID, we should be able to have it as a conference call.
Okay, I just feel like it would be a little more flexible to have as soon as possible meeting as a phone conference rather than making sure you're free to get into the library.
Deb, I'm going to ask this is Tim, a legal question. Sorry, I got those types of questions today. We made that resolution amending our bylaws temporarily based upon the COVID-19 emergency.
Yeah.
So now that the state no longer has that order, does our policy still stay in effect at that point in time?
This is Doug, I would say yes, because I don't think it says because of COVID.
I'm reading the minutes say right here, resolution temporarily amending the West Bend Library bylaws, that we would allow digital format, telephone, or video conferencing for the duration of the COVID-19 emergency. And again, this is the definition of what we believe that emergency was based upon. Not saying that we aren't still in dealing with COVID. I just want to make sure we didn't handcuff ourselves with the words we used when we started the policy that it ended theoretically at some point.
Tim, that's why I wanted to update the bylaws, because that was something that I would like to do for the future, to put in the bylaws that if we need be, we could do a conference call. I think legally, because we are still in a COVID situation, it's not an emergency, but it is a COVID situation. If we called a meeting on the phone, or like a conference call for a special meeting, we could do exactly what we did when we modified the bylaws to say the COVID emergency. We could modify the bylaws prior to the calls, starting the full discussion, that we are modifying our bylaws to allow conference call or video meetings for the duration of the COVID situation.
Okay. I mean, I think the emergency term is pretty loosely stated in the sense of it's not the stay-at-home order or anything like that, so I feel comfortable with that. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on there is an end date to whatever we change the policy in based upon somebody's interpretation of emergency.
Well, the other thing is, if we're looking at when the COVID is over with, it's not going to be over with. It's the same, this is a personal feeling, but we're going to be facing this come Thanksgiving, come Christmas. There's still going to be a COVID situation. The news won't let go of it. So, personal observation.
So I think we can have a meeting, Tim.
Okay, that's fine. And I'm kind of with you. I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear on that in case somebody ever asks that question.
No, good question. And I see you don't want to get back to your problem, so that's why you're coming up with all these good questions.
Okay. A lot of questions around this stuff going on, so it's okay.
Oh, I know. I'm trying to make light of a serious situation, and I shouldn't.
Well, that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. On that note, our next regular meeting date is Tuesday, June 16th. Mm-hmm. And the assigned the assigned task list.
So really, I might have missed something, but really the only thing I have is to create the list for what staff can do during their downtime to sanitize and clean, and then create the signage with the recommendations from the board, including the elevator usage.
Mm-hmm. And I know you purposely missed the board task to do appraisal, to look at Amy's performance, and come prepared to discuss, please.
Got it.
We're not going to use any forms, are we, Deb? This is
No. This is just strictly, Amy sends out her goals or her objectives, what she's done, and the work that she's done, and you can look at that and kind of, based on that, bring information on feedback on her performance. If nothing else, I guess we are adjourned. Thank you all for attending this conference call.